Yeah,
tardes. Bienvenidos a la Universidad del Rosario. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en este espacio. Pues muchos colegas y caras conocidas con quienes venimos trabajando en un propósito común, y es el fortalecimiento de la gestión y la administración de la investigación en diferentes instituciones de educación superior y diferentes entidades. Y bajo ese propósito, bienvenidos. Listo, perfecto. Bien, les contaba que pues este propósito común, la Universidad del Rosario se ha sumado a iniciativas que ya se vienen desarrollando desde diferentes, o hace varios años, diferentes organizaciones, la Asociación de Gestores y Administradores de la Investigación en Colombia. Hay proyectos, hermanos y colegas que vienen trabajando hace varios años, el proyecto Itulatam, que lidera la Universidad de La Sabana, está Mi Mirandino, que también lo lidera SCUN, y que vienen teniendo propósitos de seguir fortaleciendo esas capacidades para profesionalizar la investigación en diferentes organizaciones. Y bajo ese llamado, con el equipo de la Dirección de Investigación e Innovación, y particularmente con María Camila Flores, quien ha venido liderando este proyecto de internacionalización de la ciencia con apoyo de Camilo Sandoval, pues hemos propuesto ante un llamado del ICETEX la posibilidad de crear una iniciativa que nos permita profundizar en los procesos de internacionalización de la ciencia. Y en esa digamos, tarea, en ese propósito, convocamos a universidades aliadas, la Universidad Autónoma de Bucaramanga, con quienes venimos desarrollando varios proyectos, la Universidad ICESI de Cali, con quien también venimos trabajando, y sumamos instituciones de educación superior que estas tres universidades, la Universidad del Rosario, la Universidad Autónoma de Bucaramanga y la Universidad ICESI, acompañan en los procesos de fortalecimiento institucional para que juntos aprendamos y desarrollemos capacidades para el fortalecimiento de la gestión de la investigación. Aquí tenemos a nuestras colegas de la institución universitaria von Humboldt de Armenia, exactamente. Tenemos a Unisangil, que hacen parte del proceso y que vienen siendo acompañados por la Universidad Autónoma de Bucaramanga. Y tenemos a la universidad, se me escapa la última de las aliadas, la Universidad Católica, perdón, Universidad Católica, con quienes desde ICESI pues han venido tejiendo relaciones hace varios años. Entonces, este conglomerado se sumaron a esta iniciativa, con la cual esperamos trabajar durante todo un año, Ya venimos desarrollando algunas actividades para la creación de portafolios de investigación. El próximo año seguramente tendremos muchas más actividades para el fortalecimiento de capacidades institucionales. Y en el marco de todas estas conversaciones, pues hemos tenido la oportunidad de invitar a Simon Courage. Simon ya lo van a presentar con todas sus credenciales, pero Simon pues es un referente mundial en términos de la gestión de la investigación en diferentes tipos de organizaciones. Por más de 30 años ha venido trabajando y acompañando a diferentes asociaciones como EARMA, que es la Asociación Europea de Gestores y Administradores de la Investigación y quizás la más emblemática, pero también AINCURA, que es la Asociación de Gestores de los Estados Unidos, ARMA, que es la Asociación Australiana para el desarrollo de la gestión de la investigación, entre otros. Entonces, hemos tenido la oportunidad de invitarlo, es su primera vez en América Latina, así que pues, viene muy contento a compartirnos su experiencia y su aprendizaje, y estará acompañándonos no solamente en la Universidad del Rosario, sino en la Universidad Autónoma de Bucaramanga y en la Universidad de ICESI durante toda esta semana. Simon, muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Simon, thanks you for coming and sharing with us your experience. Estamos listos para comenzar. La idea es que sea una presentación, pero que sea un taller. La idea es que ustedes participen, hagan todas las preguntas que consideren que sean adecuadas y que estas 2 horas pues, podamos compartir y seguir nutriendo experiencias para el fortalecimiento de la investigación. Bienvenidos y muchas gracias.
Gracias a todos nuevamente por estar acá. Les presento entonces a Simon. Simon Courage tiene más de 30 años de experiencia en la gestión de la investigación. Se ha desempeñado como director de servicios de investigación en la Universidad de Kent, en donde lideró procesos asociados con la presentación de propuestas, ejecución de proyectos, estrategia, evaluación y gobernanza del sistema de investigación. Ha hecho parte de numerosos comités, juntas directivas de proyectos y juntas directivas de organizaciones y grupos de trabajo en temas como la gestión de subvenciones, evaluación de la investigación, acceso abierto, gestión de la información para la investigación. En este momento, actualmente, es miembro de la junta directiva de la European Association of Research Managers and Administrators, EARMA, y lidera el proyecto Research Administration as a Profession de la International Network of Research Management Societies, INERS. Con ustedes, Simon Courage. Simon.
Gracias. It's all my slides. So, is it, no, I'm not close enough. I need to bend over. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Okay, so thank you very much for the introductions and for the invitation. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I will try to speak slowly. I will try to speak clearly. I'm very good at not doing both of those things. Hopefully everyone online can see the slides and can hear me. If not, there's nothing I can do. There's a lot of technology going on over there. I'm sure it's all fine. I also have some interactive parts which will require me to walk over there and do some things which will either work or not. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work, but it does. So, okay, let's see if we can advance the slide. Let me have a look. It's probably the water. Maybe my mouse will work. Perfect. I'll try that again, see if we can go back. Okay. Yeah.
That's a little delay.
Okay. A little delay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to try and remember what my slides were. Maybe my computer should have been here. Never mind. Okay, so I will have a little bit of an introduction. We've got almost 2 hours. Sorry to turn my back on this. We have almost 2 hours. Please do interrupt me at any time with questions. I hope somebody is going to be monitoring the questions online. You know, if you want my attention, just wave. You heard a lot of acronyms to start with. I'm a research manager and administrator, RMA. We love acronyms. I may well use some that you don't know. Please do ask me to explain them, and I will if I can remember what they are. I'm going to cover a little bit about what research managers are, what we do, maybe a little bit of why we do it. It's fun. And then we're going to go into a little bit of a workshop bit where I'm going to make you work and I can stop for a drink of water, maybe something stronger. Then a little bit about research managers, administrators working together, and then I'm going to go on to Kramer. And I haven't done an interactive part for this, but for those in the audience, who has heard of Kramer? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so a few. So this is the, how we say, approach of organisation, administrators. And we'll be doing a little bit of brainstorming at the end, and by we, I mean you, of course, about what this new association could do for you as professionals and or what it can do for research management in the country. So if that's not what you're expecting, now is the time to leave. I won't be offended at all. I mean, if you go down, I will be offended. Yes, fine. So, and then we'll finish with a wrap up. As I say, I'm very happy with Q&A at any point, so please do stop them. Right, let's see how this delay goes. It's a long delay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we started off with a nice photo of 3 dogs looking bemused, which is me most of the time. Here we now have my lovely 4 dogs, and I'm sorry for those who saw this slide this morning. Those are my dogs all pulling in the same direction. It's like a metaphor. The white stuff you can see is actually snow, which I understand you don't get much of, but so I thought I'd introduce that for you. We get quite a lot in. Okay. If you're wondering about the photograph, that's what I used to look like a couple of days ago before the international flight. Let's see if I can do. Okay, let's see if my mouse will work. Yeah, okay, good. This is going to be slow. Okay, I'll try that. Okay. Aha, there we are. That's what I look like pre-COVID. And it was. My wife seems. And more importantly, more doggies. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Okay, we're going to get on well. So yes, I have a long experience of being a research manager administrator. Yeah, okay, thanks everybody for shouting out. So I was a computer science researcher before that, and then I kind of fell into research management administration. Didn't really know it was a thing. I kind of became one by default. We can maybe talk about that later on. I've done lots of national things, metrics on open access, research information management, and then a whole load of acronyms down the bottom there. We're missing the very bottom one, but it doesn't matter. The very bottom thing that's missing is the Journal of Research Management and Administration. So if you're feeling that want to write something sort of academic or practitioner about research management and you want an outlet, then there are journals for you. So you can become a sort of a hybrid research manager / I know you've all got their jobs. So yeah, the important point, here we go, winter as well, so for those online. So I'm going to talk quite a lot about this lovely acronym here, which is RAP. I'm not going to do a RAP, don't worry, probably should have practiced. So it's really easy to find online because not many acronyms have 3 A's in, so it's a good way to go. Okay, no questions so far. It was Simon, that was who you were expecting. Okay. So this is where I have to swap over, but before I get there then, have you used Slido before? Yes, good. So if you get your phone out or your computer or whatever, and you go to sli.do or use the QR code. If you go to Slido and it's 2293882, I hope, and hopefully people online will be doing that as well. I need to go start the poll. The poll should be open. I don't see any votes yet, but let's stop here. Nobody's managed to vote. That's worrying. Yes. Hooray! So that's one vote in. It shows at least the technology is working, or Marianne Miller has just voted from my computer. So I think there's about 30 people online and about 20 people here. So that's 50. So if we get up to about 40 votes, I'll be happy. Not 14, you're 14. A lot of something else's. Up to 20. Who in the room hasn't found it? Who in the room doesn't care? 23 is my lucky number, and we're above 23. So at least happy with it. Happened there. Mind you, that was probably like one vote, right? 4% within. Just because I call myself research manager administrator, you don't have to agree. It's okay. You can do something. Yes. So hands up here if you haven't voted. Nobody dare admit it. Okay, are you going to, or okay? You have. Okay. Okay. Hands up if you have not voted yet. All right. Hands up if you have voted. Okay. Looking very good. I believe that. Come on. I know we can get to 30. Okay. So while the last tardy people who are all asleep at home. They moved my mouse. Oh no. Thank you. Then, okay, so we have research manager administrator, almost a third, 30%. And there's something else. I shall ask you about the something else's later on, of course. Research project manager is perhaps lower than I thought, because I had kind of thought that that was a phrase for Colombia, or at least maybe for Rosario. Research manager is probably expected. Research administrator is down there, 6%. That must be two votes. If we were in North America, that would be a lot higher. So anyway, there's a little bit of interaction, and we're ready for next time for the really important poll. I can see if I can flip back. Are you going to do it for me? Do you think? I'm doing a step challenge, so I really needed those steps. Okay, so. Wow, yeah, I know. So here we have what people like us call themselves around the world. So we have the RMA, which is very much a European term. We have a thing about a manager being higher up than an administrator, whereas in the United States and North America, administrator is like the senior position, so the president is the chief administrator, and for them, a manager is the lower one. So we wanted to be inclusive. So there you've got those. We then have, in Portugal, they go professional at the interface of science, which is very sort of inclusive, I guess. And of course, by science, they mean research, so we need to have a debate about that. Very strange project manager, one sort of grown up in the UK, but that's actually research infrastructure and science manager. Then research advisor is very much a Northern European term. Research and innovation managers, so very much including that knowledge exchange is a term they use for one in Africa. Research manager in Australia, because again, manager is more senior than administrator. but quite often research facilitator. They also use research manager in Japan. And also research development or research developer is becoming more popular. Like people who support researchers in developing their skills. So yeah, so what's in a name? Well, this is from the RAP with 3A survey. I'll tell you more about that later on, but seems as we've just been talking about identity, I thought I'd throw this in. So there were 71 responses from Colombia, and these are all the other responses from anywhere else in the world, which I labeled not Colombia. So do you identify as a research manager and administrator in general? So the blue is the yes, and then there's the somewhat, and then there's the not sure up here. So there's a lot more Colombians not sure, and that's probably the something else that we just heard about. But apart from that, it's pretty similar to the rest of the world. So not a huge surprise. We're all the same, but different. Then there was a further question in the survey was, well, okay, well, if you identify as a research manager and administrator in general, then what's your exact identity? So like the poll we just did. So yeah, there's quite a few options, and I know you probably can't read these. So this is the professional at the interface of science. The orange is the project manager. So this is Colombia again, the first column, the left column, and then the right column is the rest of the world. So the big chunks for Colombia is the blue, which is the research and innovation manager, which we didn't see particularly highly there, but it wasn't an option. So that's fair. That might have been something else. Research manager, which is actually higher than that 13% that we had, just a little bit. And research manager administrator was again quite high. So this is probably actually reflective of the audience now. So I'm speaking to the right people, which is the main thing. I guess the difference with the rest of the world is this big grey bit here is research administrator, and we had a lot of responses from the USA. So that's the reason for that. So as you can see, lots of different colours, lots of different names, and here you've got just about every option from Colombia with only 60 responses. Every country with more than 10 responses had 10 different options, because we all do the same thing, but we all have slightly different identities or are called slightly different things, probably because it's a new fledgling profession. Okay, so some definitions, you don't have to read them. The point of this is that there are lots of different definitions, some with a small number of words and some with a large number of words. Yes, the more words that you have gives an indication that we're trying to describe all the things that are done rather than some sort of overarching view. Personally, I like the one from Julie Stackhouse here, which embraces anything that universities can do to maximize the impact of their research activity, blah, 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 blah. The only thing I don't like about this is that universities do, because we have people who are research managers and administrators who don't work at universities. They might work at research performing organizations such as research institutes, or they might work at funders or in the medical sector or whatever. So there is no perfect definition. I'm sure I'll write one soon enough. Let's say the other way of defining that is what are the activities that are done. So this is the professional development framework, which was developed by ARMA, the UK association. You can tell the UK is really up itself, because we haven't called it ARMA UK. Like the Netherlands, they call theirs ARMA NL. We called ours just ARMA because obviously everyone knows the UK. So anyway, so there are sort of 7 main chunks, and somebody wanted to come in. But I think probably you're going to recognize yourself in at least some of these, assuming you can work out what the acronyms are: Management Information System, Electronic Research Administration, Research Information System, Knowledge Exchange. But apart from that, I guess this is probably the next couple of slides away anyway. We then have this sort of longer list of things which goes on, so including continuing professional development and information technology support. If you had to describe it in one word, I quite like interface between academics and funders, interface between academics and the real world, if I dare put it that way. So a translator, a diplomat, but yeah, maybe an interface. The reason why the project is called Research Administration as a profession, not RUMA, Research Management Administration, is because it was originally funded by Enduro US Association. And you have to use the words that the funders are expecting if you want money from them, right? So call it Research Administration. For them. Okay, so just a small warning on choosing an acronym. This is from a Norwegian cartoon. RAP, or rather, is apparently Norwegian for burp. So it may not be belch, it may not be the best acronym. On the other hand, memorable, right? There's a bit of a cartoon here with another fish going on. Anyway, we needn't go into that. Okay. So I promised I would tell you about RAP. This is probably slightly too busy, but I'm going to explain it a little bit. Or, actually, did I talk about it in 2016? No, I didn't. So in 2015, as I say, we got funded by Encura. So that was Stephanie and me to run what we thought would be a small survey for who are research managers and administrators, what are our demographics, and also asking the specific question, what's more important, soft skills, transferable skills like communication and collaboration, or technical skills like costing and pricing, things specifically involved with research administration. So we ran a survey and we persuaded a lot of the national associations, coming up on a slide, to disseminate the survey for us. We thought, wouldn't it be great if we got like 500, or maybe we could dream of getting 1,000 responses. Yeah, and look, over 2,600 responses from around the world. So we were very happy. We then sort of did a lot of analysis, wrote a paper, and for whatever reason, we were foolish enough to think, well, why don't we do it again? And it's a bit like childbirth. After a while, you forget how painful it was. It's okay, I don't mind doing that again 3 years later, yeah. Probably wasn't quite as painful, but you get the idea. So we decided to do that again. This time, we actually had endorsement from INORMS, the International Network of Research Management Societies, which is like an umbrella association of associations. Again, more on that later, although some people know more about it. And we had some of the same people involved. And again, a huge number of responses there, went up to 4,000. But to be fair, we did ask for associations, so that's probably unreasonable. This one, we only asked 12 associations, we asked 20 associations. We do have a little bit of funding from Encura to convert all of this data into something a bit more usable than a huge SPSS or Excel spreadsheet, but to introduce some infographics. That was due to finish 2 years ago, but we got a no-cost extension because of what happened a couple of years ago. COVID, anyone remember that? Yeah, that's so just. And then we decided to do a third one, trying to keep the periodicity the same. So at the beginning of this year, we launched the third iteration of the survey. And again, I'll give you a little bit more detail on that. But just to give you an idea, there's a lot of people involved, lots of international collaboration, really interesting, really exciting, really difficult to get everyone onto a phone call with time zones going like phone call, how old am I? Zoom call. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, and I should mention over 5,000 responses this time. So here are all the associations. Look at this shining one over here. Very nice. So this is my sort of my home association, my national association. But as was mentioned, at least I think it was mentioned in Spanish for the introduction, I'm also involved in the European Association and the EARMA. I can't actually see the logo. I'm sure it must be on there somewhere. Oh, there it is. Good to see. Couldn't see it for looking. So that's an association for research managers across the whole of Europe, even after Brexit, including the UK. And so you can see some of the ones I mentioned already. So the Australasian one, where they talk about research managers, Brazilian Association, Norwegian, US Association. I'm not going to go through to give you an idea of sort of the scope of the work. Probably one thing worth mentioning is that at least part of the survey was translated into different languages, and thank you very much. We had a Spanish translation, which I'm sure helps get the number of responses from Spanish-speaking countries up. That was amazing. We also had a little bit in French and Portuguese as well. Okay. So, those research co-investigators are the ones who are still going through all of the data. The data has been cleansed and so on, but we still need to do a few little checks before we release it for you all to play with, but I can give you some of the data here. You're probably going to see a bit more of Melinda later on, Madhuri from India, and Christina from Portugal. So, just in case you're interested in looking at the data, because I know you will be, yeah, maybe Simon, so this was that one. It always comes in 3 sections. So there's always about your role. So what is it that you do? What areas do you look after? How senior are you? And so on. I mentioned that we asked about skills and competencies. So that's the soft skills and the hard skills. There were a lot of questions on that. We didn't feel that we needed to burden people with those questions again. And so for the second survey, we asked about research impact support instead of skills and competencies. Demographics was kept all the way through, so sort of gender, age, and academic attainment, and so on. This time we asked about routes into research. How did you? I mean, I don't know about you. When I was 10, I was thinking, what would be my ideal job? I know research manager administrator, because everybody was, yeah, maybe not. Okay, we'll do a poll on that maybe, but yeah. And of course, potentially RAP 4 in 2025 to look forward to. Yay. Sorry? Inclusion. So you think that should be, okay. Yeah, inclusion. Okay, so like equality, diversity, inclusion. I like the way you're thinking. Okay. So this is from the first survey. And I've divided up between responses from the US in blue, because we had a lot of them, and everyone else in red, just to give you an idea that more or less everything was sort of the same. So this is, are you involved in any way in proposal development? So that pre-award, and basically 90% of research managers, administrators around the world who responded to the survey said that they were. Also involved in some way in project support, so some sort of post-award activity. Translation here is knowledge exchange, so that's a smaller element. Research student support, again, that's probably the biggest difference in the US. Almost everyone else has a graduate school compared with slightly fewer graduate schools there. It's a lot lower, and quite often it's a separate identity. And they're involved in policy and governance, in systems, in audit or compliance, or in general in service delivery. So the takeaway from this slide is that we all do a lot, because that's 90% of people doing quite a few things there. In fact, if we look at how many of those 8 roles you cover in at least some way, here we have, this column is for people who are at operational level, so very much at the coalface of doing the work. Here, people who are managers who are perhaps head of a team, so maybe you are a research support professional here, but here you might manage 2 or 3 research support professionals, and here you are leading some aspects of maybe the entire office, or maybe you're leading on research ethics or whatever it might be. So yeah, so this is the proportion of people who undertook 8 of those 8 things, or 7 or 6. So basically, operational staff, 40% of operational staff are involved in supporting all of those activities. So here you can imagine if you work in an institution where there's only 1 or 2 research managers and administrators, you're going to be doing everything. But those figures suggest to me that even in large institutions, there's quite a lot of cross-fertilization, people having to help out people to do things. By the time you get to the leadership levels, then almost 80% are involved in 6 of those areas, which makes sense because they've got to oversee all of those areas. I'm surprised it was the time. Okay, so that's who we are and what we do. Any questions so far? Can you speak more slowly? Was that a question? Are you all doing okay? Can you speak more clearly? Can you tell us a joke? No, nobody's okay. So, just to give you a little bit of hope about your career, if I can put it that way. Here, I'm looking just at the US, and the reason why I pulled out the US is because research administration has been around for a lot longer. What their oldest association is 65 years old now, which, believe it or not, is older than me. So looking at that data, here it's sort of a cross-tab, if you like. So here we have what was your first research administration role? Was it an assisting role, an operational role, a managerial role, or a sort of a high-level strategic role? And what are you now? Blue means now I'm a leader, now I'm a manager, and now I'm operational. So in terms of people who first started off in an assisting role, quite a lot of them are still assisting operational, but over 50% have either moved up to a managerial position or into a leadership position. I suppose to look at another way around, if you look at leaders, then 20% of those people who are leaders now started off in a strategic position, but also 20% started off in this purple assisting position or an operational position. So there's a reasonable amount of opportunity to work your way up within. So hopefully you get to see your role with these individuals, that you can align your career progression. Wow, there's a lot there, Simon. How are you possibly going to explain that in the hour that you have left? So here, again, just looking at the US because of the amount of data involved, these are the hard skills, the technical skills. So here we have proposal support, support for knowledge exchange, supporting research students, policy and governance, systems, audit and compliance. And these, again, is the operational, managerial, and leadership. Just realized my point is not really helping for people online. So of the three columns, the rightmost column is operating staff, middle column is managerial staff, and the leftmost column is leadership staff. So how important are these technical skills in your role? And you can see the yellow is increasing in almost every graph, and the yellow is where it's really extremely important. The purple is very important, and so on up to the blue. To me, that's a bit counterintuitive, because I would have thought if you move from an operational position up to a leadership position, you shouldn't need those technical skills anymore, because you have the operational staff to have those skills for you. So I don't know if this means leaders just think they know it all, or they don't trust their staff. I don't know. But yeah, slightly counterintuitive. So that's for each of the individual levels. And you can see here, a lot of students, it's not important because I don't look after research students at all. On the other hand, if we then look at those soft skills, which are slightly more of, you can see a lot more yellow. And that yellow, again, is increasing as you move up from operational to manager to leader. And yeah, I mean, it's huge amounts, over 50% yellow in most of those areas. So if you want to advance, concentrate on those soft skills, communication, collaboration, diplomacy, joke telling, all of these sorts of things. Maybe not joke telling. So if we then just sort of compare those two things side by side, if you like, the kind of the soft skills and hard skills all over together, then you get one of my favorite slides, which is here we have the hard skills on the left-hand side with the operational, manager, and leader right to the left, in leftmost. And then on the right-hand side, you have the sort of the average of all those soft skills. And you can see there is some yellow in the hard skills, but hardly any, whereas it's all extremely important or very important. So the top 2 points on a 5-point scale, which people are asked to select from. So yeah, if you want to progress, focus on the soft skills. That's the takeaway. Everyone's going, we all knew that, Simon, but yes, but now you have the evidence. Now you have the data. That's what research is all about. Okay. So now some data from RAP 3, which is the most recent survey at the beginning of the year. Here I've just done it by large regions. So you've got Canada to the left, Europe excluding the UK. I know because of Brexit, no, actually not because of Brexit. We decided on that before because for the first survey we had so many responses from the UK that we could take them out and still do statistical analyses. It was UK and the rest of Europe, which I suppose makes sense in terms of English speaking. Then Oceania, so Australia, New Zealand, rest of the world, which really was a catch-all for anywhere which wasn't Canada, Europe, Oceania, UK, or USA. And that could be broken down into Africa, South America, and so on. But in general, there weren't enough responses to make that sort of sensible. I've added in the specific results from Colombia, which is probably 74 people for some of the questions, down to about 69 for some, mainly because of Spanish translation. So thanks very much, that's amazing. So this question is male or female. You can see overall, it's about 20% male across the world, with the rest of the world being maybe 40% male, and Colombia actually 45%. So you are a little bit of an outlier. Of course, the data isn't that huge, but interesting, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. As I look around the room, I don't see 45% male. I see more like 5 or 20% male, the same as the rest of the world. So interesting. Maybe I don't know. I've got no idea. So interesting. They don't get any easier, the slides, I'm afraid, but there aren't that many, don't worry. So we have the same columns for Canada, Europe, so on. Here we have the age. So the blue is 24 and under, which you hardly see any of. About one person from Colombia. Okay. The orange is 25 to 34, and the grey is 35 to 44, and then 45 to 54. So you can see there's that's hardly anyone who is under the age of 25 who responded to the survey. Now, does that mean that they weren't a member of the association that distributed the survey? Or does it mean that there was nobody under 25 who was a research manager administrator because they didn't find the profession until they wandered around aimlessly, being, I don't know, a doctor or something else like that before they to find their true calling? And for me, there we are, all these old Americans, 65 and over, still working because their pensions must be terrible, but because they love it so much. So, again, not statistically significant, I guess, but I do see a lot of young-looking faces around here. So, maybe that's actually right. And maybe there's going to be a great cohort of Colombian Irelanders coming through. So, interesting. Okay, here we are looking at just the responses in terms of are you in a leadership position, managerial, operational, or assisting, or indeed other, which is the I don't really know what I do. But you can see that overall, quite a few people in Colombia who responded to the survey are in leadership positions, or at least think they are. But a good spread. So we have got coverage of more junior people, more senior. So we can perhaps do something interesting with the data. Which of the areas do you work in? So before I showed you 8 areas, here, because the graph would have been horrible, I've narrowed it down to 4 areas. So the blue is research, development, and policy. So that's the kind of the researcher training, policy, and governance, and so on. Orange is pre-award, grey is post-award, and yellow is other stuff. So maybe communication with the public, that sort of thing. So you can see that for every region, pre-award is the most common. Although for Oceania, there's a lot of research development, and the rest of the world, a lot of research development. I do have the data for Colombia on there, and I'm going to put it over the top of the UK. There wasn't really room on this graph. So that's the Colombia data. And if I flick back, you can see there's not really a huge amount of it between the UK or between the rest of the world. Gray's come down a little bit. So what can I say? You're the same as everyone else. Even though you're sort of newish, can we somehow morph to be able to provide that service that's required? Okay, now we come down to academic attainment. So, what is your highest degree? Is it a doctorate in blue, master's in yellow, or a bachelor's in grey? Now, this is quite an interesting difference to me. Again, the numbers aren't huge, but the rest of the world, high proportion of doctorates, and this Colombia data comes out of there. But your data looks very similar to the US to me. So sort of 20% doctorates and a lot of masters. And maybe this is down to the culture of Colombia, and maybe a lot of people have to do a master's in order to have better career opportunities. The reason I think it's very high for doctorates to the rest of the world is I see a lot of people moving from research into research management administration. And so they kind of bring their doctorate with them. And that's that's certainly less of the case in Colombia. So interesting that you're sort of similar to the US on that, where it's very much seen as a professional position. This is just a little bit of UK data, just because I thought it was interesting and I thought I'd run it by you. So this is data from the 3 surveys. So the blue is 2016, the orange is 2019, and the grey is 2022. So the proportion of UK RMAs with a doctorate was 22% and has now gone up to 42% over those 6 years. Now, I don't think that's people who are research managers and administrators doing a part-time doctorate. I think that this is probably turnover in staff, and that suggests to me that practically every new member of the research management profession coming in must have come with a doctorate. And I don't think that's because it's needed, but I just think it's because if you're looking at 10 applicants and 2 have got doctorates and you're doing your shortlisting, then maybe you're going to shortlist those because it was desirable, and so why not? So I wonder if the profession is kind of excluding people who would make great research managers, administrators, just because of academic attainment. So possibly see that as a negative thing rather than so certification. So you can get a certification in research management administration through various national bodies or international bodies. So the orange is those that have a certification of some sort. And sorry, I should explain this before. The numbers are the numbers of respondents, not the percentages. You probably work that out because it says only 20. Yeah, okay. So we do have 15 individuals in Colombia who have some sort of research management administration qualification. Maybe it's project management one, or maybe they've done. And again, that's not too far off the UK position or the European position. And again, I pulled out the UK data on this because, again, it was 500 responses, so it gives us reasonable data. I don't see a whole lot of movement there, so I think that's staying the same. So it seems to me that either not many people are doing a certificate in research management, or it's not particularly valued, whereas that PhD for some reason is valued. So to me, it's a slight worry. Okay, so how did you become an RMA? The blue one was, I wanted to be an RMA because I thought it was a great job when I saw that opportunity came up. And you can see that's pretty much the same across the world, 20%. The orange one was, well, I kind of had I made a choice to apply for it. I didn't really know what it was, but it seemed to match my skills. And that's really the most predominant for the rest of the world, less so for you. The grey, rather worryingly, is I was moved into it, in brackets, even though I didn't want to do it. Of course, now it's great. So that might be interesting to explore that. And the yellow is kind of, well, something else happened. So yeah, that could be interesting to talk about. Did you move from research into research management? So thinking about that 20% before. So this question was actually, how important was that factor for you to move into research administration? So again, we've got Colombia and not Colombia. So the pale blue here is the lowest, so it was not important at all. So for most people outside Colombia, this wasn't a reason. It wasn't a reason because they hadn't been a researcher before, whereas about 20% had been a researcher and moved in. Here we have that roughly 20-25% of people who have been researchers, maybe not all with PhDs, but maybe they've been doing master's research. But we also have quite a lot in the middle who it was some sort of a factor. So again, that's quite interesting compared with this small gap here. So to me, that's an interesting region. A question. Okay, do you want this so that people online can hear you? Yes. Yeah. Watch the steps.
Sí, nosotros analizamos esta gráfica que nos pareció muy interesante, que o sea, vieron la población, somos gestores de investigación muy jóvenes y con poca formación doctoral. Sin embargo, cuando les preguntan, ¿usted venía de la investigación? Mucha gente se identificó que sí viene de la investigación y encontramos una correlación con Salim en algunas entrevistas que hicimos, y es que mucha gente venía de ser joven investigador, jóvenes investigadores con ciencias min ciencias. Entonces, creemos que hay un nicho interesante por descubrir. Uno como joven investigador aprende CDLAC, GRUPLAC, a presentar, a formular proyectos. Entonces, hay un grupo ahí interesante de formación. So, in English.
That was quite long.
No, sorry. There is a program here in Colombia funded by the Ministry of Science that is called Young Science Researchers. Young Research.
Okay.
That is for people who recently undergrad. So they start a career of research. So many of them identify now like research management.
Okay.
So that's why we are young, but we don't have a lot of research management with doctorate or with PhD, but they identify like we know research. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Sorry, me pareció algo muy curioso.
And that's why you always need the local information. So thank you very much for that. We should write a paper.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Book chat. Okay. Okay. So it turns out that was interesting and easily explainable. Fantastic. So yeah, I know you'll get the slides afterwards. This is, if you want any of the links to the data or you want to read what I've written about it, fine. Or just search for RAP 3A iNorms for information, or if you want the data, RAP 3As and Figshare, because all the data's in Figshare. I should say that this data here, that's the correct DOI, but it's not live yet. So don't complain if it doesn't work, but it will be live soon, very soon. Okay, that's sort of the end of the first bit. So could be the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, we should see. I was then going to, I told you Melinda would come into this again. Now talk a little bit about building your network, because as I hope I've convinced you, soft skills are really important. Networking, a really important part of developing those soft skills. I do a session with Melinda on international speed dating, but you're all from Colombia here, so I'm not going to make you speak to each other, so that's fine. And you can all speak to me at the end, that's all fine. But we do something sort of similar in that I'll give you the slides. So we'll talk through those, but we won't actually do the speed dating part. So back here, I almost forgot this bit. I need to advance the bit. If I can do it without. I think it's okay, it's just swapping between that. And has anybody voted yet?
No.
Oh. It should be the same slide as last time. If you filled out, I'll get it up.
Yeah.
Still nobody's voted, so I don't. It says active, so. Ah, fantastic. You know, we can flip it back and it's yeah. So last time we had 29 votes. So I'm expecting about 5 votes this time, so everyone's going to vote unhappy. I always get at least one A, and that's the person I go for a drink with afterwards. I didn't used to be. I'm only an A when I'm on stage. When I'm not on stage, I'm more of a E. But I did used to be a D when I was a lot younger. Yeah. I'll only wait till we drag up to 20 this time. Pretty sure everyone online has gone off by now thinking, 4 o'clock. Probably all checking out the Brazil score, but it's not worth it. Somebody has decided to go for the D for the D. I like that.
No A's? Yes.
0% A. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Life in some parties.
I thought all Latin Americans like to dance and party and everything. I was misled, right?
Life and soul of the party. That's like a
This
level, right?
okay. Yeah.
You are the soul.
Okay, well, we're probably not going to drag it up any higher. So yeah, we have lots of the ambivert, it depends, which is really good because you can be quiet when you need to, when you recharge, but also you need to do that networking so you can do it. And everyone else likes to meet new people, apart from a few introverted people who are probably the ones who are online and not here, right? And the deep person is probably here and just so, okay. But interestingly, almost everybody has that capacity or willingness to know. So that's all good. Are we going to try to flip back or try and do it? Together? Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, does anybody know what this is? Oh. Anybody know what this is? Disco lights? No.
Yeah.
It is a slightly folded up, high resolution and colorified image of what comes out of something which is spherical shaped with like a corona on the top. Coronavirus. Yes. I thought you'd like to see one up close. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, so the soft skills, I've talked about the importance of that. Another reason that you want the network, and sorry for the people who are here this morning. Here this morning we had a meeting with other people. If you're going to apply to the NIH, US federal funder, maybe you did it 3 years ago, maybe their rules have changed. You can spend literally days reading up all of those. Or in my case, I phone up my friend Melinda and she tells me exactly what to do. So have that network, have that expertise. It also gives you sort of either formal or informal mentoring, but also sort of this peer-to-peer network, and gives you someone shoulder to cry on, someone to explain your woes. And this is the problem I got with my project. Oh, yes, I had that problem as well. And this is how we solved it out. So very much that peer support network. Career enhancement, because you build your network, and some of the things I'm going to sort of show you in terms of how to build that network will also enhance your career prospects as well. And of course, find out an interesting, who knows, might get invited to a faraway country to give a presentation. So, yeah. Okay, I don't need to go over this slide again, but it is one of my favorite slides, and I think very persuasive. So we haven't quite yet got to the local professional organisation, but there are some other organisations, I'm sure. But yeah, if you serve on a committee, then rather than having a one-time meeting with someone, you will meet these people, I don't know, every month or 2 years, or whatever your period is. And you have the 5 or 10 minutes at the start, and maybe a half hour after the end, and you find out a little bit about it. You make a connection. And it's a very easy way to make a longer lasting relationship, rather than just a Zoom call where people arrive and then just, so it's a really good way of building that up. The business meeting part is, if you go to a conference, almost always there is some sort of business meeting for that. So the conference is from an association of some sort, either it's a subject association or a research manager association, and they have the part where they vote in new committee members, where they talk about the plans for the future. And all the important people in the association are there, and so you can go there as well, just make yourself known, maybe speak to a couple of people, and you then become sort of a face which can then be invited to things. Also, volunteer your time. One of the best things to do is volunteer at the registration desk, because you meet everybody then, and you can then put a name to the face of the important person that you wanted to speak to, rather than wandering around the conference looking at people's badges, because you've already recognized the person from their new badge. But yeah, also volunteer for anything that you're not interested in. You know, if you're interested in Equality and Diversity, volunteer for the Equality and Diversity Committee, you meet like-minded. Yeah, so obviously network to expand. Don't be shy. So apart from the C's and the D, then we're all happy with doing that. There are different strategies for in-person and for online connections. But the important part of this slide is follow up. And yes, I know you recognize that venue. And did you go around the corner there? Yeah, because around the corner there on that first night, they had koalas and a little alligator and stuff. Yeah, you know, so, yeah, it was a bit weird, that's right. Yeah, but they were interesting. Yeah, 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 a real one. Well, I have had a couple of drinks. Yeah, exactly. I had like a handler there, you know. Yeah, yeah, indeed. Exactly. Another way, if you're one of these shy, introverted C's and D's, is write something, because you don't have to speak to anybody to write something. If you're writing it on your own, you really don't have to speak to anybody. But maybe you might want to write it with some other people that you already know and trust, because I mean, there's probably somebody at work or somebody you met once. Or you can in fact write stuff with people you haven't actually ever had to talk to. You can exchange things by email or whatever. Write about something that you know about. A lot of people then say, well, who's going to be interested in that? I do the same job as everybody else. Well, if you do the same job as everybody else, then everybody else will be interested in reading your thing, right? Yeah, but I do ethics of koalas. Nobody else does that. I'm thinking, well, actually, there's probably 2 other people who do ethics of koalas. If you write about it, they will then want to speak to you, because they're the only person in the whole world probably who does ethics of koalas. So it's always worth writing about something. Probably one of my biggest regrets when I was a younger research manager was not writing about some of the stuff that I did in my institution. I remember when I had my doctoral writer, my external examiner, who was a research manager, read my stuff and said, right, I knew some of this. I didn't know what you'd done all that other stuff. It would have been really interesting to know at the time, and it would have helped me in my job. And I kind of thought, well, I'm doing it, so it must be straightforward. Everyone else must be doing it. Not necessarily the case. So, yeah, just think about writing stuff down and then people can contact. There are various newsletters and write for us. They go a little bit more in depth, and there are sort of academic practitioner journals where you can write a full thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, this thing here was just a blog post, and it was literally, we were writing about the project. All we really wrote about was we're doing a survey about how I became a research manager, and the 4 of us wrote how we became a research manager. It wasn't very difficult to write because we knew the answers. I guess this is obvious. Start small. If you're thinking, I want to go to the International Network of Research Management Societies conference, the next one in, say, in 2 years' time, next year in Durban. Maybe you don't want to serve on a committee for that. Maybe you want to start maybe an institutional committee, or maybe a network in Colombia, or maybe in Korea coming up. But also make your interests known. If you are interested in koalas, talk about it occasionally. I mean, I might have mentioned dogs a few times. If you're interested in dogs, that gives us something to talk about to break the ice with. But also, if I'm interested in ethics, then actually, yeah, then if you're interested, we can have that talk about ethics, integrity, whatever it be. But with colleagues in similar positions in other organizations. But also, so that's that kind of peer network. But also think about positions where you think, well, that's interesting. Why don't we do that? Or I'd like to do that. So yeah, or interesting positions. So I had one boss, it wasn't recorded too late, one boss who wasn't necessarily the best boss. But one of his really good pieces of advice was, whenever you're in a network, either an academic or a professional network, try and be the odd one out. It seems a bit, but yeah, no, it makes sense because, if you are in a group of computer scientists and you're the ethicist, when they want an ethicist, you're the go-to person because you're the only person in that group. So if you have a specialism in ethics and research management, and you're in a group of librarians or whatever, then they're the one who's going to come to you. So have that sort of difference. So vive la différence. Oh, speak French as well. Yeah, okay, speak to other conference workshops and attendees. If you don't know everybody else here, maybe have a quick chat with them during the coffee break. I think we get a coffee break. So, or after at the end, just a quick conversation. Top tip there, obvious tip, but I only heard it earlier this year. If you see two people talking together and you want to speak to them, to be honest, don't bother because they're talking to each other. If you see three people talking to each other and you want to speak to one, that's fine because one of the people will be able to break off and leave the other two of their conversation going. So obvious tip, but yeah. Speak to session presenters. If you like what they were talking about, or you didn't agree, or you want to, go up and speak to them afterwards. I'm going to mention Melinda again because it seems like I've got a thing. Anyway, I mentioned Melinda again. A couple of years ago, I gave a presentation. It was a virtual one because of COVID. She sent me an email after saying, "I find your presentation really interesting," and she was obviously a bit mad because she said one of your jokes made me laugh out loud. So anyway, but I actually got some positive feedback about my presentation, which, to be honest, I don't get very often. And so it made me feel good. So I reached out to her, we joined on LinkedIn, and then we're doing a project together. So just a little link like that can lead to anything. Of course, if you read something that you like, reach out to the author. Say, I read your article, I thought it was really interesting. People don't get that very often, honestly. So if you do think something is interesting, just reach out and tell them and maybe ask a specific question. Use LinkedIn, maybe Twitter, it's still working these days. So if somebody says something interesting on that, follow up, tweet, maybe send a direct message, whatever. Quite a lot of these things you can do online, you can do it virtually. So even if you're a little bit of a C or an E, then these are things that you can think about doing. Not quite sure why. I'm sure there was a really good reason for having a seagull in there at the time, but okay. So I mentioned social media, or left Melinda's on there. So there are some Twitter handles there that you might be interested in following. There's the European Association one, there's a Cure for funders, and then there's INOS Community, which is the international network. And there aren't that many people on that, so it's not a huge Twitter thing to follow, but there's quite a lot of good contact content in terms of upcoming workshops and quite often virtual workshops. Maybe special interest groups, and of course email, and even email. I think I clicked the wrong button there. Often happens. If you want to follow me on Twitter, probably not a good idea. But if you're on LinkedIn, then you can find me on LinkedIn. Actually, my name's not so bad, easy to find. For me, LinkedIn and Twitter are the two best for research managers and administrators, at least in my sphere. Some countries have different ones, so okay, fine. But yeah, some countries actually we do it on Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever. And sometimes even on Facebook. I think the Italian Association is built up on Facebook. Okay. Copy of one of my links. Okay. In terms of getting international, I don't know if I mentioned the EARMA conference. I don't know why it says EARMA 2024 when it really should be 2023. I put them in order, but okay, fine. So, I mean, I'll add one error, I think, on the presentation. So yeah, if you are interested in networking in Europe, building up those networks, Prague is not very expensive to get to, but it's quite cheap. Not as cheap as Bogota, I have to say. So yeah, probably over 30 countries. For the big one for research managers and administrators is INORMS, which is in Durban, not long afterwards. Or if you think that you don't want to go to South Africa because who wants to go to the Southern Hemisphere when you're in it already, right? Maybe you want to go to the Northern Hemisphere. Then the next INORMS conference, only every 2 years, is going to be hosted by IARMA. It's going to be hosted in Madrid, and they speak quite a lot of Spanish in Madrid, so it might be easier. So also, it's far enough away that you can persuade your boss that you really need to go and tell them that they've already agreed last year. If you want to stay closer to home, then there is a Brazilian association. I haven't put it on here because that's going to be in Portuguese. Maybe you speak fluent Portuguese, I don't know. If you do, then look up Brahma. Who's doing it again? Keep missing the, my thumb's too fat. So Incura has a financial research administration and a pre-award research administration conference back to back, 5 days all in all, in Las Vegas. Yeah, okay, don't ask. So if you're interested in US federal funding, specifically in either pre-award or in post-award, that could be worth it. If you're a research development professional, so actually helping researchers develop their skills, then there is the fat finger time again. Sorry. Do it there. Then there is the US National Organization for Research Development Professionals. As you can see, that's their 15th conference, so they're not that old. They kind of grew out of both Incura and SRA, the two big US ones, but they're specifically focused on research development. Again, Canada, if you have to speak French a little bit, then there are people who speak French there. 51st conference, so you can see quite old. The Incura main conference is the oldest association. That's always in Washington. You always get a lot of federal funders there, for instance, in general. SRAI, which is the other big US one that's going to be in Seattle this year. They have that around North America. So those are kind of the big conferences. These bottom two, they have sections. So they've got 5,000, 7,000 members, but they're divided into sections and they each have an international section. So in the international section, these are only going to be between 50 and 100 people. Between 50 and 100 people, all from outside the US. So again, could be worth it from that point of view. Okay, so I know you're thinking, I can't do all of these things, Simon. The answer to that is, yes, you probably can, if you want to just do them. Everyone has imposter syndrome. I mean, I thought my slides were perfect and I got 2024 into 2023. I'm going to be devastated tonight. I'll be fine after I've had a drink. But yeah, everyone has imposter syndrome, so don't worry about that. That doesn't help. If you have a connection with someone and you want to keep that connection up, I always find a good tactic is to maybe exchange 2 or 3 emails or whatever, even a Zoom call or something, depending on how well you go on. Do that for the first couple of weeks afterwards. Then you don't need to continue doing that. But if you then if you see them at the conference next time, you've got that contact already, and it's just, so you do that. Or 3 years later, you can still reach out to that person and they will probably remember because of that contact that you had a few good conversations, you exchanged a joke or played class with your dogs, whatever it might be. Just be aware about doing too much. If you speak to everybody here that you don't know, don't try and maintain contact with all of them. Do maintain contact with the ones that you get on well with, because life's short, right? Work with people, network with people that you get on well with. But yeah, keep in touch. Okay, how are we doing? Goodness me, time is going on. Yes.
There's a question at the top. Which are the main international journals journals, sorry, to publish on research magazine.
I wonder if I have a slide on that. If I haven't, I will answer the question later on. I think I might have a slide. Okay, so stop working for me.
Find out. Okay.
Okay. So this is the kind of the why we do it. I put working with faculty, not working for faculty. So yeah, service but not subservient. Some academics can do it all and they can do it really well. Most can not. But even if they can do it all, is it really the best use of their time? We're the research management professionals. We should be helping them so they can do more research, get more funding. So yeah, okay. In terms of bureaucracy, some of it is important, but actually most of it is not important. Quite a lot of it we inflict on ourselves. We collect information because we think it might be useful, and then we never have enough time to do anything with it, so that was wasted. So if you are going to be collecting information, then think about, will you actually use it? And if you don't, then really that wasn't ethical to collect it in the first place because you've wasted everybody's time. So think about that. So when you come across why does this form need to be filled in? Actually think long and hard about that and speak to your bosses, whoever it might be, about, well, why are we actually collecting all this information? So that just be a bit more streamlined. Academics are people too. They probably like coffee, tea, or whatever it is. Ask to speak to them about their research. That really gets them on side. Make sure you've got an hour free though, because once you start, then you can't go forever. But also be interested in them. Take a little bit of an interest in their personal life if they want to talk about it. If there's someone, and then you can ask them about that or whatever. It just keeps them on side, and then they'll come to you sooner rather than later because they feel happy with it. So make that personal connection. So I'm going through these slides quickly now sometimes, so apologies for that. So bring your experience. You maybe don't think you have a lot because I've only been doing this for a couple of years, Simon, and you've been doing this for a couple of years, looking at proposals, let's say, for 2 years. That's more proposals than any academic will have looked at in their time and written. So you've actually probably got more experience than them in reviewing proposals, whether or not they see it or not. So know your stuff. Do you have previous proposals to that funder? You've probably seen them before. You might even have access to them if you've been allowed to copy that. Think about similar situations in the past. And of course, reach out to your network. That person you met here, we talked about the funding that they got from royalties and work with. So reach out to them and get that information back. And try to solve problems, not bring them. All other associations or all other parts of the university bring problems, right? HR says, no, you have to do this, and finance says, no, you have to do that. We take those and we solve those problems. We are for our academic colleagues. So just make sure you know your work. Think about funder success rates. If you don't bother applying here, it's a 1% success rate. We have some European schemes where it's a 1% success rate. But know how the processes work. Explain to them what's going to happen afterwards when the proposal is submitted. If you don't know, then probably you should find out because that's useful information. How long it's going to take and what the actual proposal process is. And if you don't know, then reach out to your RMA colleagues who work in funders because you have some by now. And be prepared. So obviously be good at your job. So good it was say it twice, but this is the slide title and the main thing. Do try and sell yourself a little bit. Don't just sit there and be subservient to the academic staff. So actually I have done some proposals like this before and give them that information, give them that feedback. Once you've given them some critique and they either listened to you and got the funding, they'll be happy, or they didn't listen to you and didn't get the funding, then they'll realize they should have listened to you. And over time, you will sort of develop that reputation for actually knowing what you're talking about. Do make sure that you deliver. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. And I know sometimes that means you might have to work late for a deadline or whatever. Sorry, there's no way around that. And then speak up and do that networking. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yes, put yourself in their shoes. Quite often academics can be problematic, and they come to you late, and that's because this is not the only thing they're doing. They've probably got some teaching, bizarre thing like that that they do. So yeah, think about what their problems might be, and try and put yourself in their shoes. Okay, so we probably, I think, need to skip this Slido, otherwise it's going to take too long. So apologies for that. It was only going to be a word cloud anyway. And everyone's going to say, no, I have no problems with working with researchers. They're all fantastic. What I was wanting to do, now, Mary Camilla, are we doing anything on coffee break or have I blown it? It's gone. Let me. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, here, but
Okay, so we can do, I'll explain this and then people can think about this and have coffee at the same time. So this is a bit of a longer thing. It's not Slido, but it is online again. I can see you all looking really worried. So you need to look for ideaboards.com with a Z. And then so you need to put in all of this URL. So it's /FOR, I don't know why, and then /Colombian RMA dev. Sorry, I should have put something shorter. And then /4749711. What you will then get is a kind of a blank screen with some sort of one post-it note type thing on it. And what I want you to do is add as many post-it notes as you like. There's a plus sign in the middle of the screen, which will add a post-it note. You then type in whatever you want on that post-it note, and then you get a coffee while you're thinking of some more. And then what we're going to do when you come back from the coffee is we'll then look at all those post-it notes and you'll vote for the ones that you think are most interesting, most important. What am I putting on those post-it notes? So I hear you say, what you are putting on is, what development do you think you need as a research manager administrator? What are you missing to be able to do your role better? So do you need more time? Obviously. Do you need more money? Obviously. But do you need more expertise in NIH funding? Maybe not. Do you need more understanding of how the library works because you've got all these impact factors which academics keep talking about that you don't know what they are? Whatever it might be. So just start adding those. Has anybody managed to get the screen yet? Is it working? Hooray. And then you can get a coffee or whatever at the same time.
Thank you.
Sorry for the coffee. Yes. I blame the long Spanish question. That's what it was. Yeah, I guess we can do about 10 minutes or something to get a coffee and add some post-it notes. Okay, well, I hope everybody online had a lovely coffee. It was nice. Sorry about the coffee here. Okay, so this is probably where we're going to have to more or less wrap up. I might try one or two slides after this. But if you haven't yet voted, maybe give yourself 5 votes maximum. If you want to vote for any of these post-it notes, you should just be able to do it by clicking on where it says +1 or +0. If you just click on that, then it'll add your votes to it. So I'll give everyone a minute or so. It might be difficult on your phone. I don't know. Scroll up and down.
We don't see the whole thing.
You don't see the whole thing.
No.
Well, okay. Well, some people, the people who managed to vote must have had computers or something. I don't. Well, I haven't seen any more votes coming in, so. We have an expert. Excellent. Do you want to flip it back to the other screen? Yeah. Okay, so you can continue voting, and I guess I'll just sort of wrap up and try not to keep you more than another 5 minutes. I get my screen back. Yes. I've got too many windows open, right? Yeah. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can always read through it. Okay, so sorry for speaking for too long. I blame you for the questions. That's my excuse now I'm sticking to it. I'll just sort of whip through the final slides because you'll get them after if you want them, just in case you need them. But I'm going to be very quick, so don't worry about that. So you can continue voting with those slides, and I'll return those later, and we'll perhaps feed them through. I did have a separate poll that I was going to do for how do you think your association can help you, but maybe these things can translate into how that association can help you, because perhaps some national training or peer support on those things which people find most important. So yeah, just to remind you of sort of the most important qualities for a research administrator. I don't see sense of humour there though, so this is obviously an old slide because it really should be there. But hopefully you'll recognise some of the things there. So I was then going to talk about Karema. I did that sort of raise of hands, so some people are involved and interested. And then we were going to then talk about why you perhaps should join, but hopefully I have suggested to you that being part of a network is really important, really useful. That's in probably every profession, but certainly in research management and administration. So what are the things you want? Do you want to be part of a profession? Do you want that recognition, that sort of invisibility that you talked about? Are you interested in qualifications or career opportunities, network, peer support, national, international opportunities? So we talked about all of those. We were then going to do that workshop again. Wow, I didn't realize I was going to talk for so long earlier on. I was then going to mention some of the sister organizations. I know I have mentioned them already, so that's fine. And if you haven't already signed up for Durban, I would definitely recommend Finals 2025 in Madrid. Of course, I am on the organizing committee, and the people who come, the better, so might be slightly biased there. I mentioned some of the other ones as well. Typically, associations will offer training and development, sometimes accreditation. It could be self-accreditation, so it could just be that you get a Karema accreditation for, yes, you attended 2 hours of workshop, and then that accreditation would be worth something to you in a portfolio over time. The funder interaction is really important, really crucial. Quite often funders are very willing to speak to universities and researchers And research managers, if they knew they existed, obviously we have some here who do know you exist, but they're really much more interested in speaking to a group of research managers and administrators. So you get together, we represent all the institutions, or most of them, and then they'll speak to you. Something about publications, you might even have a conference. I haven't got time to talk about the RM Roadmap project, which is a European Commission initiative, where they are now funding research into research management. So really interested in that. Time to wrap up. That's the one joke, sorry. So just thinking for yourself, give yourself like a minute's worth of reflection. Kind of what were your takeaway messages? What are you going to do now, immediately, apart from clap in a bit? But what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do next week? What are you going to do next year? Think about that plan. And if you do want to think about a plan, then there's a link. And again, you'll get these slides. This is a really useful tool for where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what steps you need to put into place to get from where you are to where you want to be. So it's certainly a career development plan. It takes 5 or maybe 15 minutes. Yeah, we shall see. And that was all I wanted to say, but there was a question which I haven't answered, which is journals for research on research management. There are, as far as I know, 4 around the world. The oldest one is one from the Society of Research Administrators International, one of the US associations. It's called the Journal of Research Administration, very easy to remember. The second oldest one is from Incura, the other US association, and it's called Research Management Review. And there is also a journal from a group of Malaysian universities, and it's called the Journal of Research, Governance and Ethics. I think that it's that. So it's focused on the sort of the research governance side of things. The best journal. Maybe I'm an editor on that, so perhaps don't say, maybe a tiny bit about the newest journal. There we are. That is the Journal of Research Management and Administration, and it's designed to be perhaps more international. So there isn't really that same US focus that you get in the JRA and the RMR. It is quite a lot of European focus, but we do have editors from around the world. So that's the answer to that question. Thank you very much. I'm now 7 minutes over. So unless there are any final questions, then I think I should wrap up and apologize. And that's it. Okay, thank you very much. Bonus points to anyone who can name my 4 dogs.
Thank you, Simon, very much for your presentation, for sharing with us. Gracias a todos ustedes por habernos acompañado.
Yep, cool. Anybody got any follow-up questions, just email me. The worst that can happen is I won't reply, but I might if it doesn't go into my spam.
Muchas gracias por acompañarnos.